Setting up your meeting for Facebook Live. We are just moments away. There we go, ladies and gentlemen, once again. Every Monday night right here on Facebook Live. 3D Politics. Indeed. All the way to the third dimension. Tommy McCay, your fine host here tonight with a special, exciting episode. Both Davids are out on me this evening, and I have special guests coming up. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing more exciting than a special guest tonight. The people who are driving home the idea that the force of government to make us wear masks is out of line. I've got Debbie Robertson coming on to discuss the anti-mask thing as well as a special guest. Let me just bring Debbie Robertson in right now. We're just going to bring him in. Everybody, there she is, coming up now, connecting to audio. Everybody is learning to love the fumbling through the Zoom audio as opposed to the pre-produced news and the fake banter. Here comes Debbie Robertson. She's connecting to audio now. And we have another special guest coming up to join us on 3D Politics. Debbie is the founder of the mask freedom issue. She has put together a group that helps us understand what is freedom and liberty where forced association is concerned. That is, she's all about having people demand you wear a mask in their free and private property, but she's not interested in having the government force you to wear a mask in your own pursuit of happiness. So Debbie Robertson is connecting to audio as best she can, and I don't know if it might be my problem here. Let's see what's happening. There she is. Okay. And that is my problem. Connecting to audio. She should be able. Asked to start a video. This is the fumbly. Tell you what we're going to do. We're going to see if we can bring anybody else in here. I don't know why. There we go. There's our special guest. For some reason, I'm having a problem bringing Debbie Robertson in. Her video is off. Debbie, check your video feed. Make sure your stop video is not there. Also, your audio connection is not. Bringing in, ladies and gentlemen, a special guest tonight, Clay Clark, Tulsa staple businessman. Clay, thanks for being on the show tonight. We're going to get Debbie on here as fast as we can. I understand you're representing the, what is the name of the mask issue that you're representing?
Well, there's the Tulsa mask mandate. G.T. Bynum, Mayor G.T. Bynum has said we all need to wear masks in the city of Tulsa.
Right.
And yet OSHA states clearly on their website that when a person wears a mask, their oxygen levels fall below 19.5%. If they do fall below 19.5%, then what happens is that the person begins to suffer from oxygen deprivation. So again, on OSHA's website, they state that if you are an employer, which I am, and you create an environment where your employees have to work in an environment where they have less than 19.5% oxygen levels, you are putting your employees at risk of physiological harm. And so I don't want to be an employer who causes my employees, my healthy employees, to get sick of oxygen deprivation. And so that is why I have filed this lawsuit today in conjunction with Dr. Robert.
There we go. Clay, I'm sorry to interrupt. Very rough these days. Again, as much as I love Laura Mock telling me the weather, today's new entertainment is Zoom. It's very unorthodox. We don't know what's going to happen. And all the pre-planned stuff on the alphabet channels is the old way. So, Clay, pardon me for interrupting. Debbie Robertson, thank you for joining me. Have you got your audio going yet? I see you. That's good. Ask to unmute. You're still muted.
Oh, we're going to get her. We're going to get her. We want to get her. We're going to get her.
It's only a matter of time, kids.
It's going to happen there. Maybe we keep some intro music or something. To kind of...
Thank you. I've lost my production man tonight, but Clay Clark is here making it all better.
There we go. All right.
Clay, one of the things that a lot of people get into, like you clearly know all of the business. Debbie, you're muted for some reason. She knows, and she's going to fix it. I have 5 children over 30 years, and a lot of times it's not about, you spend a lot of time arguing about who's right according to the statistics, et cetera. But the bottom line is jurisdictional authority. That is to say that I am the king of my castle. If you own your business, you should be able to make or bake the way you want. If you want to demand me wearing a mask to enter your business, that makes total sense to me. However, if I'm going to pursue my happiness walking down the street or riding a bicycle to go to the social distancing gathering place, then pretty much so I can do, there's no reason I should be judged for what I'm wearing, just like the victim of a rape shouldn't be judged for what she's wearing. How's that for stepping it?
Well, I will just say this on a very practical level. Again, if OSHA on their website is saying that if an employer forces an employee to work in an environment where they have less than 19.5% oxygen levels, we probably shouldn't have below 19.5% oxygen levels. And so we've actually had Dr. Jim Meehan and other doctors come into my office and test. When you put on the mask, the mandated masks, your oxygen level falls below 19.5% within 10 seconds or less on average. Now think about this, folks. When you have oxygen deprivation, it causes physiological damages. We're talking about people having heart conditions. I talked to a gentleman today who said he was working out at a local gym and a guy passed out next to him while doing burpees. And then Dr. Jim Meehan said a very competent, capable person with no history of work injuries fell off a ladder because his employer mandated that he wear a mask, and he fell from a very high level, and he might be severely injured for the rest of his life. And this kind of stuff is happening consistently because people can't breathe, they're lightheaded, and that's why what they're doing there at the Facebook group, Citizens Against Mask Mandates, is so important. The work that she's putting in, the work that her team's putting in, we just have to unite together. And Dr. Zellner and I felt like it now was the time to file a lawsuit on behalf of all
you guys. Yeah, both you guys. And I want to give you guys a little bit of time. 7:07 now. I got a hard break at 7:30 to bring in Greg Robinson. I feel like tonight is just a blockbuster show. I've got Greg Robinson on 7:30 to 8 to discuss the mayoral race. Clay Clark on tonight, thanks to Debbie Robertson's connection. Debbie, do we have you on audio now?
I think so.
I think we hear. Way to go.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
My Chromebook is not cooperating today, so I'm holding my cell phone up. Sorry.
Well, I used to have a Chromebook. We had to save money. We got a cast iron book is what we had to work with. So, what do? You wind them up and make it happen. But anyway, we're glad to happen. So let's just very quickly, we've only got 20 minutes. It goes fast with so much talent on the show. Debbie, tell us the group you started. Then we're going to move to Clay Clark and explain why he's involved with Zollner. Debbie, hit it.
I made the group back on July 10th. The same day that Biden announced that he was going to go ahead and draft the mandate. I said, no. This is not okay. There's not just medical reasons that people should not be wearing a mask. There's also mental health reasons. There are victims. I have spoken to countless victims of domestic violence, for example, where having that over your face it triggers a lot of fear and anxiety. And that's a huge reason that nobody talks about, that women have confidentially talked to me about that.
Mm-hmm. You certainly don't hear the feminists jumping out to bring that to the attention.
No, you don't. So I started this group and I had no idea what was going to happen with it. But we did a big protest on the 15th, and we've just grown from there. We're almost at 12,000. And
that's amazing. That's
we
great.
just do what we can do to help educate and empower people, you know, on the real truth. And unfortunately, Fascist Book makes us delete a lot of our content. What he was explaining about OSHA, most of those videos get flagged, and they threaten to delete our group at least once a day over one of those videos. So so I set up a domain, citizensagainstmaskmandates.com.
And I'm going to make sure anybody can share screen right now. I forgot to set that up. So if you've got a screen to share or you want to here in a minute, go. It's all set up for you to do that as well. But tell me the name of your group again, please. Citizens
Against Mask Mandates. And it's just grown exponentially. We have so many people working with me on my team, a wonderful admin team. And we work on educating and empowering the citizens on what the actual mandate reads. There's so much misinformation out there about, you know, am I going to get fined? Am I going to get put in jail? Are they going to shut down my business? We have city council members who are actively working to shut down businesses, and businesses, they fall for it, you know. They don't have to enforce.
It's kind of like it's options for sheep, I call it. Clay, what do you got while we're on our way here?
Well, there's 3 points I want to hammer home today. Is one, I really appreciate this organization that she's built. It's really a sacrifice of her time and energy. And if everybody out there is listening and you want to get involved, join these Citizens Against Mask Mandates. It's a fabulous group. But there's 3 points I wanted to communicate.
Okay.
One, again, we cannot let our bodies have less than 19.5% oxygen. Okay, you can't. You're going to get sick. You're going to injure healthy people by making them wear masks. Point number 2, Senator Rand Paul said this, and I'm quoting. He said, if you look at the age population, 18 and under, the mortality rate is about 1 in a million. If you look at the ages 18 through 45, the mortality rate is about 10 per 10,000. We just interviewed Dr. Dan Erickson on our Thrive Time Show podcast moments ago. This is a guy who will be meeting with Vice President Pence in about 24 hours. Okay, he's on his way to Washington, D.C. to meet with the President of the United States. He pointed out the death rate from COVID-19, check this out, is 0.02%, not 2%. 0.02%. So that means we're making healthy people sick to hide from a virus with a 0.02% death rate. Just as on Friday, Dr. Scott Atlas, the medical doctor from Stanford, he came out and said, I'm quoting, he said, we know that the risk of this COVID-19 disease is extremely low for children, even less than that of the seasonal flu.
Right.
Now, point number 3, again, point 1, you shouldn't have less than 19.5% oxygen. Point 2, wearing masks to hide from a virus that isn't deadly doesn't make any sense. And point 3, there is no constitutional, no medical, and no scientific basis for wearing these masks. It doesn't make any sense. And there's this controversial book called the controversial document called the Declaration of Independence, which reads, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their creator with certain and unalienable rights, that amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, here we go, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. It's hard to pursue life, liberty, and happiness when you can't breathe, which is why Dr. Zellner and I have filed that lawsuit against the communist G.T. Bynum, who's definitely not a Republican. If he is a Republican, he's not aware of what it means to be a limited government-loving Republican. That man, his actions are 100% against that of the Republican Party. And everybody watching this within the Tulsa area, you need to get G.T. Bynum out of office right now and put in Ken Reddick. Again, put in Ken Reddick. You have to do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're Debbie, hold on just a second. Let me reset us because that's a heck of a run there. Nice job, Clay. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to the voice of Clay Clark from Thrive Time. And we are blessed with his presence here to bring us that concise information. A lot of those numbers go way over my head. And so I stay in the clouds of the philosophy. But Clay, that is fantastic what you're doing. But you're listening right now to 3D Politics. Tommy McCay, your fine host, with Clay Clark and Debbie Robertson, both pushing the it's not an anti-mask thing. What do you call yourselves?
Right. I always try to make it clear we're not anti-mask. We're anti-government overreach.
Amen.
So the name of the group is specifically what? Citizens Against Mask Mandates,
yes.
Not masks simply.
Yeah,
so Debbie,
we fully support people who choose to wear masks, and there are valid reasons and times and places to wear them. But walking around in public, driving your car, walking your dog, all those are very detrimental to your health, and especially when you're wearing them prolonged periods and wearing them wrong. There's just so much wrong with all of this.
He's not opposed to Batman Mondays. Like a lot of our listeners, walk around on Mondays and I'm Batman. They go, no, you're Clay. You're not Batman. I am Batman. They like to wear the mask. It's something they do. Adults want to do Halloween on Mondays. She's not against that. She's saying against mandating that. I'm telling you, you're not going to find a more freedom-loving person than Debbie. You have to join her organization. This woman is sacrificing. I think the hours are long and the pay is low.
So the reason I quit accepting groups because everything was just stacking up, messages. And so that's why I never joined in. But how important is it to join a group like that when I fully support the whole concept, but I really, transparency, haven't joined the group just simply because I got so many groups. Is that bad or good for me? Am I bad for that?
No, you're not bad for that. We would have probably a couple thousand more, except there's a lot of medical professionals in Tulsa who have come to me privately and said they wish they could join in. They're completely against the mandate, but they can't join or they would lose their job.
Right.
But those of us who if you can stand up, please do stand up.
I probably ought to join. It is a civic duty. Clay, what do you got?
Well, I think what happens in a culture is we like to skip over Matthew 5:10 from the controversial book known as the Bible. But if we were to open it up for a minute.
You're just filled with all the controversy.
No, if we just open it up, we look at it, and we go, Matthew 5:10, it says, "Blessed are those that are persecuted for their righteousness, for they shall inherit the kingdom of heaven." For the Christians out there watching this, the logo of the Christianity faith, the Christian faith, is the cross. We have to sacrifice and suffer for the things that are just, okay? And there is no justice that's going to exist over here. There is just us. There is no justice that's going to happen through drifting. There is just us. We have to make it normal to oppose these tyrannical, draconian mandates. We can't make it seem like it's a fringe group of psychos. I mean, we had this group, we had an event to raise money for Ken Reddick for Tulsa mayor. Right. And it was so fun to see these people meeting each other going, oh my gosh, it doesn't make sense to wear a mask to hide from a virus with a 0.02 death rate too. I mean, the people almost feel like they're alone in this, but actually it's the silent majority. And if we're not careful, if the silent majority doesn't say something, soon when government overreaches completely, it has to become the violent majority. And that's not a good place to be. You want to make sure you peaceably protest, you share your faith, you share these things, and you're going to suffer for it. And you might lose a job for it. You know what? I've actually lost a lot of clients as a result of what I've been saying. And you know what? I don't care. I don't care because I have 5 kids, and I care more about them. I care more about my faith, and I care more about our liberty, and I care more about people understanding that government derives their rights from we the people who consent to give those rights to the government, and we all get our inalienable rights from the man above, from God. Our rights in our Constitution come from the Creator, and then we just allow government. We allow government to we consent to be governed.
So Clay, it's easy, Debbie, excuse me, except while I take a certain exception just to press Clay on a point here. I mean, many times, and while I'm a Christian myself, I've rarely use the Bible as a source to prove out my Christian values. Essentially, many people, most of the people that need convincing aren't necessarily convinced of the Christian religion anyway. So let's
throw out anything I just said about Christ, but I can't in terms of my daily basis. But for this show, I'll do it, folks. The death rate. That's not okay. Go ahead. That's not what I was getting at. But go ahead. I was saying the death rate is 0.02%.
Right. But if when you're talking to people who don't follow what you're saying, it holds no weight. You see what I mean? And when you say it's the right thing to do by Christ, people who don't follow Christ, it holds no weight. So how do you convince people who don't do numbers and don't do weight? It comes down to what I call jurisdictional authority. That is, who is in charge of what area? Debbie, what you got?
I will say on this, they knew our rights, and they did include in the mandate an exemption for religious objection. So they do know that people can claim a religious exemption to this as well, not just medical. So people should keep that in mind. And your religion can be anything. You don't have to be, it doesn't have to be a Christian objection to this. It can be an agnostic objection to this. I have a good friend of mine who is not Christian, and she also will not wear a mask. And she says it's because she just doesn't believe in anything, that she doesn't believe the media, period. And the media has overblown this so much, and all they're doing is pushing the vaccine rather than any of the common sense issues that could help with this, with washing your hands. Keeping a little distance between people is smart, Boost your immune system. Have you heard one media story about how to enhance and improve your immune system and your health so that you can fight off the virus if you did get it?
I'm supposed to leave a healthy distance between me and the car in front of me, especially when it snows outside. But the bigger issue here, because again, the time is our most limited resource, especially now. We've got about 9 minutes left. I want to put a couple of concepts out there to try to redefine some old problems in a new way, and that is forced group association. That is bigotry. That is, they look at me and they say, hey, white man, you've been lucky since the day you were born. It's all been handed to you on a silver platter, and yet I'm Cherokee Indian with a card and everything, and I never made it to the platter. And then they also say that there's now we've got forced participation. Something picked up hot here. We've got forced participation on the part of, in the same way that they forced us to buy insurance. Now they're forcing us to behave in a way to make sure we keep our insurance. So the two terms I want to hear you guys comment on are forced group association as bigotry and forced group participation as like slavery. Clay, what do you think?
Well, what you're witnessing right now is the thing that Al Gore refers to as the Great Global Reset. So if all your listeners will take just a moment, write it down and go back to it later, okay? But just type in the Great Global Reset, Al Gore. Everybody just write that down, okay? Al Gore appeared in the Wall Street Journal and in Fox Business saying it's now time for the 2020 Global Reset. So when you look at the organization Black Lives Matter that's driving this racist, divisive narrative, when you look at who's funding that organization, that is George Soros. And the African-American, the black attorney, Colleen Noor, he appeared on the Joe Rogan show and pointed out that, hey, the founders of Black Lives Matter are actually Marxists. And so what's happening is this is a plan to attack you and your family from two different fronts. Front number one is to convince you that the virus is more dangerous than it is. And if you don't accept it, you're criminally insane. There's something wrong with you.
Well, I've been accused of that before.
And the second narrative is that there's a vastly divisive race war going on. And so even though my best friend is Eugene Willis, who happens to not be white, Eugene Willis, what's up? And my wife's best friend, Sharita happens to also not be white. They're trying to create a tension that all of a sudden that we have issues between each other that we don't have. So yes, there's a narrative designed to cause America to implode and to become a divisive nation. And all I would just say is I would direct people back to the Bible that says we're all created in his image. And therefore, I don't think that racism should exist if you believe that we're all created in his image. If you don't believe in Christ or the Judeo-Christian faith, I don't have any pro tips for you.
I get you. And before I send it off to Debbie for some comment, regardless of your beliefs in a deity or not a deity, I mean, truth is truth, even if a fool says it. Debbie, what do you got?
Okay, first of all, foremost, I love my God. I know that I'm a Christian. I don't bring it up very much when I'm speaking about the mass, though, because I just stick to the facts. Just the facts, just the medical facts, and empowering people on what the mandate actually says, what it doesn't say, what it means, what it doesn't mean, and people's rights as citizens and business owners. That's been my focus on this. I educate people on what they can say, what they can do, what their rights are. That's my focus on this. I mean, I will gladly speak about that with anybody who wants to, but I personally don't bring that up. Even
I wanted to chime in real quick here.
Yeah, Clay.
I wanted to chime in real quick and just say, I have only interacted with Debbie just briefly, but her heart and her motive for doing this, it's not a motif. It's not something she's doing because she wants accolades or high fives. She's doing it because she cares about your health and your ability to choose. And if everybody out there, if you're just looking for a breath of fresh air every morning, some encouragement, some facts, not fear. I'm talking about some facts. I'm not talking about a religious type of faith. I'm just saying where you're going to have some hope and some optimism. Truth. I would encourage you to sign up for her Citizens Against Mask Mandates Facebook group, because you're never going to encounter somebody with more of a pure motive for doing this. And I just want to applaud her right here. I hear so many great things about her, and they've all turned out to be true.
Right. Debbie, I appreciate you coming on the show tonight.
Yep.
And Clay coming out. Clay, I know you're a music aficionado.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from some of the systems you built in the DJ world here in Tulsa. Your regular staple around here was Zollner, et cetera. But could you guys indulge me if I could properly share a screen? I wonder if I can do it. Let's see if I can find it.
Okay.
And I want to get Clay's feedback. Let's see what I've got here.
Okay.
On a
living the dream.
Let me see if I
While you're looking at that, I want to tell everybody.
Yeah, please do.
I am absolutely not in this for money. I have spent way more than I've made. We do have some T-shirts that we made for the cause. Science before compliance.
Oh yeah, come on.
Yeah, and just for Tyrant and GT, I made a T-shirt just for him. Bye Bynum, and I put up a website, byebyebynum.com. Any proceeds for that goes toward just our printing costs, our rally costs, things like that, and to support our conservative candidates.
Great. The shirts are great, by the way. She's a creative machine with those shirts. People love those shirts.
And we've got a bunch of them walk around Tulsa. I see them from time to time, and it's just so neat. I want to walk up to them and hug them.
That's right.
All right. Well, too much trouble. No producer tonight, but I do have a video out there that I will share. I can see Greg is in the waiting room. I'm going to bring him on. But real quickly, before we get out of here, Debbie, one more time, what they can join your Citizens Against Mask Mandate. Tell them where to find you. And Clay, you want to tell us where to find you?
Yeah, I would encourage everybody, go to my podcast, thrivetimeshow.com. It's thrivetimeshow.com. We've recently done interviews with U.S. Secretary Ben Carson, Senator Scott Jensen. We've got the governor of South Dakota coming up here soon. We've got Bobby Kennedy booked, Judy Mikovits. Anybody related to this COVID chaos, Wolfgang Puck, John Maxwell, you're going to like it. You learn some business. You have some fun. I guarantee you'll laugh and learn something on each and every show.
That is excellent. Debbie, thank you for bringing Clay with you on the show. Thank you to both of you all for being on 3D Politics. I'm going to exit you guys now. Thanks for being on the show. We'll see you next time. Hope to have you back again.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, as you can tell, struggling to get that shared screen, still not figuring out how to bring that crazy video up, but you got to find out how great it is. It's the New Normal by Tommy McCay. It's a sound parody. Now, I really want to appreciate Clay Clark and Debbie Robertson for coming out, but the big news tonight, we've got Greg Robinson in. I'm going to bring him in right now if I can do it. Tried to admit him. Here he goes. Joining, it says. A couple of them joining. And there's audio. Very good. Cutting that out abruptly. Greg Robinson, how are you doing?
Hey, doing well, Tom. How are you?
Nice to meet you over Zoom. I appreciate you showing up.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
It's a great opportunity to have you. And I just want to take a moment to give you, we've got just a short 30 minutes where it's going to go fast.
Sure.
And I've been studying your campaign.
Yeah.
And you've been a staple activist here in town for many years now. I only got into the politics here in Tulsa in 2016. You and I had a common adversary. And the first thing I want to break it up into kind of 10 or 3 segments, 10 minutes each, and
Okay.
find everything we can between my concepts of worldview and your concepts of worldview that agree, and then move into a secondary area where we talk about the harder issues of press each other for definitions, et cetera, things that are more different. And then finally talk about things that solutions. The viewers that we have are always saying, you guys lament all day long, but you never have a solution. And so tonight, I got to tell you, I have what I call the Bradford Navistar plan for North Tulsa. So coming up, I'm going to bring that up towards the end of the show. Okay. So first of all, in the first 10 minutes, and again, we do not have time to explore the depths of your resume. It's outstanding, and we just don't have time. So tell us, though, basically whatever you need to say about to set yourself up. Give us your basic platform, and then we'll find some areas of agreement. So Greg Robinson, hit it.
Sure. So Greg Robinson here, grew up right off 29th in North Lewis, Tulsa native son, and proud of that. Truly, I'm running because I believe that every Tulsan deserves a pathway to upward mobility. And I think that should happen regardless of your race, regardless of your socioeconomic status, and regardless of your zip code. Right. And I think that here in Tulsa, we've got an issue right now with sort of being wrapped in an illusion. We talk a lot about unifying in terms of being one Tulsa, but the reality is for many Tulsans, whether they're in West Tulsa, East Tulsa, North Tulsa, and frankly, areas of South Tulsa, it doesn't feel like that. And the data really points that out. You're talking about an area in Midtown that has 2.5 times as many jobs as the area in West Tulsa. The average income of white families right now, twice that of Black families. Native Americans still being denied home loans at 3.5 times the rate of white folks. And you can see it in their homelessness rates that are large. We talk a lot about the life expectancy gaps, 8.4 years between North Tulsans and South Tulsans. But the biggest issue I have right now is simply we don't have someone in office that can make a decision. Whether you agree with me or whether you're more conservative, at least make a decision and stand on that decision. And right, frankly, right. I think the Tulsans deserve some choices. They deserve to know where their leadership stands, and to me, they deserve to be able to have a voice in office. Again, regardless of whether we agree all the time, I think we've got to do that to move forward. So I believe that we can do better as a city. For me, that formula is revolved around inclusivity and how inclusivity can equal prosperity for all of us. And I'm excited about the last 7 days of this campaign and continuing to have that conversation.
That's excellent. I appreciate that. I question a little bit differently some of the things, and I want to draw out as some higher level philosophies. I know you've done a lot of media appearances, and everybody wants to talk about the fodder that to me is controlled by a higher level philosophical trajectory, the difference between group rights and individual rights. For instance, I agree with the concept that you just mentioned that we don't have leadership that can make a decision. Now, steering clear, I do not want to talk about the mural Black Lives Matter or the blue line. What my issue about the whole thing was arbitrary enforcement of the law is lawlessness. Now, all of the messaging and symbolism aside, if the mayor cannot enforce the law, then you have lawlessness. And so when people break the law, see, how is it that, so I agree with you that the mayor should have enforced the law and then worked with the chamber to put murals down. So I don't understand an arbitrary enforcement of law. Where am I wrong in that assessment?
Well, Tom, I think since we're going to go philosophical, let's go there.
Please, yes.
We have to understand that we're in a country that has frankly arbitrarily controlled the law since our beginnings. And that control has often affected the very people that are still being impacted now. And so it becomes disingenuous, frankly, when we hear about when the law comes into play and when it doesn't, when frankly, there's been laws on the books that have been incredibly harmful to people of color, to women for a long time. And there are many times where it is important to break the law. I mean, our country, if you want to get down to it, wouldn't be a country if those patriots in the early 1700s didn't say, you know what, we're going to break the law. That's what the Boston Tea Party was. And so I think there's a flexibility that we have within our Constitution, and frankly, we have within our American spirit. There's just something about being in America that the reason we're able to build and mold the country that we have is because people have the ability to challenge laws, absolutely sometimes breaking them, and lawmakers and public officials, to me, have to use that intuition, that ability to judge and say, was this something that was negatively impacting people and we need to punish it? Or was it a fair pushing of where we are, and then we need to figure out how to understand that.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I know we're going to run out of time, and there's hopefully I can have you back because there's so much to discuss. And really right now, the mayor race is the deal.
Yes.
But on that same topic, the idea that breaking laws is sometimes necessary, where force meets force, and this is I'm not shying away from that. So respond to this concept. If one believes they live in a white supremacist nation, then one submitting to the mask mandate is an act of obedience to their white master. Would that be?
So again, here, when you're talking about, because I've actually thought about this. I
don't like the transparency of motive of the question. I'm against the mask mandate, and I would agree with you that I'm going to fight the law on that all the way to Pork Chop Hill. So I am the point of the first part of the show is to find points of agreement. So I agree with you. I'm not going to wear the mask. And I'm going to push it that way. So I am agreeing with you that the law really has no bearing on me.
And what I am saying is that when we conflate what the mask mandate and white supremacists breaking the law because it's pushing white supremacy are two totally different things. The reason the mask mandate is in place is because based on medical professionals, it is deemed necessary to protect people from other people. That's why, whether you agree with that or not, that is why it is relevant and in place. In terms of a law that would push white supremacy, you could argue that the law itself then puts certain people in danger. So we're talking about a law that has been an ordinance that has been created in order to protect people versus laws that are put into place that are harming others. So I would ask you or anyone that is saying, they're against the mask mandate, I would simply ask, is there any harm that is being done by the mask mandate? If there is, then I would listen to you on that.
Our previous guest, Clay Clark, just went through much of the numbers, which again, on a show like this, talking statistics is, far and few and far between. It's just, this isn't that kind of show. I mean, it's not that kind of show. But again, these concepts that are forced or sold by government as something to protect us, the Tuskegee Airmen thing is a perfect example of health care to protect you, sold to save you, and we all know what that is.
I disagree with that
point. So again, this to me, this comes out. I brought this up earlier with in the first half of the show. This is forced participation. So it's also forced group association.
Again, even with your point on the Tuskegee Airmen, that was something that literally harmed. They were literally putting a disease inside of human beings, Black human beings, I point out. And so again, I'm saying now I think you have an argument when you're talking about people forcing you to take a shot. I think somebody can make an argument about that. But when you're talking about putting a face covering, I think we have to, again, I ask you, what is the damage that was done by asking that was based? It's a very low level way.
Okay, I got an answer for you. And the damage that's done is through what is a simple act of forced participation. If I ask you, hey man, why don't you just sit? You'd be like, well, I'm not gonna sit. What's the harm? Well, the harm is that I'm forcing you to obey. That's the harm. And when you tell me to put on a mask, I'm like, what's the harm is you are mastering me. Okay. And if you are frail, here's the science of it. If you are frail and you are endangered by going outside because it's too dangerous out there for you, then you need to protect yourself and go inside and protect yourself. You don't need to force me to behave in a way toward you that are frail. Let Darwin do his work. What do you say?
Well, we just have a philosophical disagreement.
That's why I brought up the philosophy, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't believe that. Again,
you don't believe what specifically?
I believe that we as human beings, first of all, have a responsibility to do what we can do to protect ourselves, but also to protect others from us. I believe that's a human responsibility. And so when there is a airborne disease that can be carried asymptomatically, there is no way to know whether you do or do not have this disease. And so the mask covering isn't so much, again, about you as it is about protecting those other people. I just think there is a human responsibility that we all have. And I'm not saying that you have to like the mask. And I think that the way the ordinance is written, as long as you are not within distances, you don't have to have the mask on if you are by yourself with yourself.
Yes, and I don't want to be rude, but I'm gonna run out of time. It's
sure, absolutely.
42. Again, I want to stay higher in this level because that brings us down into the anecdotal. If I'm at the quick trip, that whole thing, that's not where I want to go. The I hope I don't lose my point here. The higher level issue of the damage done by forcing me to wear the mask, and what you're suggesting.
Where are you on seatbelts?
Seatbelts. Okay, I can take that up because I've argued before, but let me bring up when you're on the airline and you lose cabin pressure and the orange cones come down, what do they tell you from science? Put the mask on yourself first. Get oxygen on yourself first. Make sure you have cared for yourself first. So it's antithetical to suggest to society that we should all hunker down like the least of us when actually the numbers are that over 50%, I believe, and I'm winging numbers that I remember, I'm not reading, in the elderly assisted living. It's in the old folks home is what they call it. And so the children are not carrying it. And the idea that I remember my point. You said, we don't know for sure. People could be walking around asymptomatic. We don't know. And the fear of the unknown. And what you're suggesting, we have an obligation, you said. An obligation to who? Government? An obligation to government? To obey government's idea of what they say will make us safe?
No, actually. So actually the numbers are that most of the carriers of this disease right now are between the ages of 17 and 35 because we feel as if the data tells us, and it says, oh, well, you guys are most likely not to die from this. And so we're carrying it around in the city of Tulsa more than any other people. Your responsibility is not to government. Your responsibility is to your other citizens. And let me say this, government was the last to ask for this mandate. Frankly, we had to push, prod, and beg Mayor Bynum to do the right thing because citizens wanted it.
So you think, so let me just clarify this, because to me, this is shocking and controversial. You think the right thing to do is a mask mandate. You want to use the force of government to make people wear masks. Is that correct?
I think the right thing to do is a mask mandate because that's a best practice we've seen across the world. Do you realize that America is handling this worse than every other country?
By what measure?
Other countries are right back walking around as they were pre-COVID. America's numbers are still on an incline.
When you say numbers, of what category number? Name the. You mean cases?
We have
number
more
of cases.
And
so let me.
Than any other country. And the sheer fact that our economy is still suffering, the number that matters is how many businesses aren't back to work. How many people are not back to work? It's affecting their bottom lines because we can't get our act together. This is America's problem.
So
we've gotten a little, wait a minute, we've gotten a little too cocky in who we are. And what COVID-19 has showed us is we are just as human as everyone else. We need to show a lot more discipline. We need to show a lot more care for our fellow man, and we need to show a lot more care for our pocketbooks, because if not, we are going to put ourselves in a position where we're harming ourselves, unable to feed our families, unable to educate our kids, unable to pay our bills. That's what I think government should be trying to protect us from. And frankly, I've been disappointed that we haven't been stronger on this.
All right, let me pin you. We've got about 15 minutes here. I appreciate that response, by the way. And I really hope, regardless of the outcome, I ran for Mayor 2016 against the same guy, basically his cousin, uncle routine. One day I want to do a whole show on the Terrence Crutcher, Betty Shelby routine, because I know that's part of Tulsa history. This is literally part of the problem, okay? And I believe you and I agree in many ways on that issue. We don't have time to bring it up now, but I want to pin you down on a couple things real quick. Capitalist or socialist?
Oh, I'm a capitalist.
Capitalist. Yeah. Are you a deist or an atheist?
I believe that God is the only reason that I'm here today.
Which God do you serve?
Well, I'm a Christian.
I'm a Christian as well. So tell me about individuals and group. It's my contention, and I'll make an assertion and let you comment on it. The group is more important to, got it backwards like every other secular group. The individual is more important to the group than the group is to the individual. What do you think?
I actually think that this goes both ways. I think that there is an individualism that we all carry that adds to the richness of what we can produce together. But I also think there are times where individuals, need support. And certainly we weren't even brought into this world by ourselves. And so we are crazy to think that we can walk through it by ourselves. So that's what I would say to that. Now, ultimately, an individual, I think, has a harder time to survive, frankly, than a group would. So I guess from that standpoint, I would say the group is more important to the individual than the individual is to a particular group.
Interesting. I have some counter discussion, but I appreciate that idea. Now, I want to move in our last 10 to 12 minutes onto what I am realizing is a chronic issue. Apparently, there seems to be some real misunderstanding when I was running for mayor, the issue of a food desert in North Tulsa, and this is what I want to bring up. I'm the only guy that has a new idea. Everybody, every single other person that's running for mayor and has run for mayor has the same idea. It's called more resources for North Tulsa, boots on the ground and more in Tulsa, more grants, more handouts, more welfare for North Tulsa. Okay, it's like clearly for 50 years of my life it hadn't changed. Okay, apparently according to Ty Walker, 65% of the people in North Tulsa are according to his definition of the boundaries of what he calls North Tulsa, are on welfare. Okay, and that's been that way for a long time. I'm not going to argue the numbers. What I'm getting at a bigger issue here, and that is there's a concept of the child emperor who was amazed by the transformation of the caterpillar to the butterfly, and he hated to see the butterfly struggle, so he helped it out of the cocoon, and when he did, it couldn't fly on its own. And I believe this is an allegory or a parable to the concepts of the welfare state, especially to North Tulsa, that we continue to give. I got 5 kids of my own over 30 years, and I know that anything I gave them, they don't care about. They might even tear it up. If they bought it with their own money, they take care of it. It's a funny thing about that. And so what I know is the more we help, the more sometimes it hurts. And I'm going to shut up in a minute. I know you can't just cut people off from substance that they rely on. That is not how it works. So if you're familiar with William Bradford, 16th Circuit 2022 or whatever, the history of the Plymouth settlement, at one point when they were starving together, the first set of pilgrims or settlers were starving to death, and they were told by Bradford that they should abandon the old communal way of life. That is the taking away of individual property because it breeds much discontent. They switched over to what we know as capitalism, where there was everyone was allowed land to plant for their own. They got to keep what they planted. The women and children went willingly into the fields to plant corn. And it was thought to be mean to force the women to go plant corn before private property ownership. So my suggestion for North Tulsa is that we draw the boundaries any way you want, and we give them a Navistar deal. The same deal that we gave Navistar, 40 years, and make it as sweet as we can. No property tax, no water payment. They got to pay their electric. Oops. Something got hot. They got to pay their electric. They got to pay their, something's killing me. Zoom is after me. So that's my idea. If we can give Navistar a $1 deal for 40 years, on a property tax subsidy, we can give North Tulsa 40 years of don't pay your property tax. And if you move a grocery store in North Tulsa, this is the William Bradford Navistar deal by Tommy McCay. It's 40 years of no property tax. All they got to do, no water. They don't have to pay their sewer. They still get their trash picked up. Everything goes straight back into their business. I guarantee you there's some people just like me. I got a house over there. I can barely pay my property tax and then think about maybe I'll get a roof. But 6 months later, I got to think about paying my property tax. And then can't get my roof. And then 6 months later, I can't pay my property tax because, so what we got to do is give them 40 years. It's worked in 1622. It's called capitalism. You got to own what you work for. Talk to me, Greg.
Well, I don't wholly disagree with your concept. Now, the question that I have back to you is, what are you submitting as sort of a North Tulsa person? Because I think that would help me here. Is it
yes,
just
in fact, yes, because one of the things, and I really want to get some input on this, and we are going to bring you back, but we only have 8 minutes, and I'm not going to keep you. Ty Walker made a point of what he considers, him and his peers, and now I'll have to go back and look at the show. He gave us the boundaries of exactly, it's this street and that street and the other thing. And the comment was, I came up with the idea, the understanding that this is the people in North Tulsa call North Tulsa, the people in North Tulsa call South Tulsa a different borderline than the people in South Tulsa call North Tulsa. And there's this little area that's neglected because nobody's, when you mention everyone in general, you're mentioning no one in specific. This is one of the problems we have. So if we define the borderline according to anybody, you.
Sure. I think my pushback is just simply coming. Now, here's the thing. I think that actually there are people who have been systematically oppressed that actually that sort of concept wouldn't make sense for. I think one of the things that I push back on people who talk about handouts and welfare is the fact that in this country, when World War II veterans came back from the war, our country gave them HFA loans, except for if you read who they could sell them to, they couldn't sell them to anybody black. They couldn't sell them to anybody brown. They could only sell them to white folks. And so you have a generation of World War II veterans that got great starts and began to build wealth. And that is the foremost in America, right? Real estate, as you said, owning your land is the foremost way to build wealth. Now, we had a generation of hard-earning folks who could not get that same sweet deal. There was a handout made that we never talk about. There was a handout made to white people in this country. And and now all of a sudden, when people of color are saying, hey, the wealth gap is 100 to 1. I'm not 100 times less capable than this other white person here. I'm not asking for a handout. I'm asking for a hand up. I'm asking for an opportunity that was given in a previous time to someone in your family to reciprocate the deal, because I think we do both believe in capitalism. I just know that we aren't starting at the same level. And so when you're not starting at the same level in a competition, one group is always going to have the advantage over the other. So to me, again, I don't disagree with your concept or principle. I think I have a lot more faith in people who have been historically oppressed, that if you actually get them an opportunity, then let's see who succeeds. It's why I actually started a program along with my colleagues at McCares called Level Up Tulsa. We invest living wage stipends into people who are going to then go and get job training so they can increase their ability to make wages and get themselves up out of poverty. Now,
go ahead.
Some people may say, well, why are you giving them money? That's a handout. But I'm saying I'm giving them money because they need to be able to take off of their second minimum wage job to go to Tulsa Works, to go to Goodwill.
Okay, so the admission is you are giving them money.
Of course, yes.
Okay, and you're giving it a money for what you consider to be your moral obligation.
No, I'm giving them money because that is what it takes for them to go and then invest in themselves. Just like you would give a scholarship to somebody who shows.
So why doesn't I'm sorry to cut you off. I've got 3 minutes. So why doesn't public school take up? Why we already did this basic concept with public schools. Democrat Woodrow Wilson forced us to have mandatory public schools, and then he forced segregation on us, which we had to argue later to fix. So I mean, why is it that, because this is the same concept, we got to give people an education. We did that in 1900s. What happened?
Well, I would say Woodrow Wilson, the Democrat, was also Woodrow Wilson, the vicious racist, right?
Which is correct for 250.
That is not. Yeah, I'm not.
Oh yeah, that.
Yeah, I'm not representing Woodrow Wilson here
exactly,
at all.
But you're not representing public schools either, are you?
Well, I absolutely represent public schools.
Well, that's a Woodrow Wilson. That's a Woodrow Wilson thing.
Well, listen, I don't believe that just because you are wrong on some things, you have to be wrong on everything. I think that's part of our issue, frankly,
right.
is that we demonize people far too much. you and I, Tom, are ideologically probably on the other side of the spectrum, but there's been some things that you've said that I had to acknowledge, right? And I think I've said some things. So what I'm saying is the reason public schooling, I think, can work is because I think that if you pay your taxes and you're a person living here, then you deserve to have free access to education if we deem that in our country as a way for you to have upward mobility. Now, what I would push back on is the way that we do public schooling. I think we need to be schooling people, to your point, to be able to do for themselves a lot more than we do, not just go to somebody's college and pay them a lot of money and then come out and try to work for somebody else. Why don't we have schooling that's much more geared towards trades, much more geared towards giving people the sort of technological skills that they need, and frankly, still even the farming and agricultural skills that we need in this new age to succeed? I just think we're thinking about it in a way that has been outdated, and schools, unlike business, aren't forced to adapt and evolve to the environments. And I think that's why our public schooling system is frankly lagging behind where it could be.
I totally agree. And I think it's because it's a socialist system. The public school system is based in socialism. It's a socialist graded system. That is that they force the kids around according to age instead of intellect. They have academic, they refuse academic advancement and they go with cooperative advancement. And so it's a totally socialistic endeavor. In fact, I've heard you speak about systematic racism, which is that is a concept that's as a person that was trained differently since 1961. That's a thing. I don't see systematic racism because I wasn't taught to do it. In fact, I believe you cannot put anthropomorphic personification on a system. That is, I might be racist or sexist, but a system cannot be. And the closest thing I've seen to systematic racism is the public schools. I've seen it in lowered expectations of minority students.
I do not, again, I agree with your point that the public school system as currently constructed is a system that is oppressing Black children.
Why is it not? Hold on. So now you've just excluded me. Do you think I'm white, Greg Robinson?
I said it's.
But I'm saying that here's the thing. You said, I know, and I'm asking specifically because when you say it only, you're referencing specifically. Well, let me ask you the question then.
I think it also systematically excludes Native American children. I think it also it excludes anyone who isn't in the race, frankly, of the power structure. But it also negatively affects, if we're being frank, it negatively affects white kids from very low socioeconomic statuses because they're essentially treated as people of color has been treated in this country.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, and we got to go. And you have been very gracious, and I appreciate it. It doesn't matter. We're going to take it up again. It's anecdotal. You have endeavored many of my philosophical things. We didn't get into any of the little weeds, which I didn't really want to, because you're going to do that all the time.
Sure.
I believe in substance above symbolism. In a final question, and then I'll let you go. You have 4 things that are your main deal, and I want to give you a chance to say them, and then I want to ask you a question. They are freedom, justice, equity, and safety. And I would like to ask you, and ask you, if you had to put those in priority of importance, 1 to 4, what would you call it?
Wow, I really don't. I think about things in circles, man, not linear. For me, yeah.
It's just an exercise to explore your mind, you know.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
But well, let me pin you down on this one, and then I'll let you go because I may never get another chance. I just scared you off. Mostly we're having fun. That's the main thing. Freedom and safety. I've often taught my children freedom is more important than safety. What do you think?
Here's what I'll say. I think that freedom is something that not all of us have even experienced. And I think the fact that you just said freedom is more important than safety really points something out to me. I think that there's a lot of people that grew up like I grew up that would say, hey, your safety is the only thing that you kind of have a ability to protect. Your freedom, you don't have that ability, because in our culture, we haven't had it, right? And
Comes
so
down to a definition of freedom, doesn't it?
Well, being in chains is not free.
Being in a mask. Being in a mask is not free.
Again, think about what we're talking about here. You're talking about not being able to have on to not have on a mask during a pandemic, and talking about freedom. And I agree that is a form of freedom. I'm talking about not having the ability to have your children, right? I'm talking about not having the ability to control who you are as an individual, not having the freedoms that were guaranteed to you apparently by the country that is the land of the free and the home of the brave. And so again, I think this is where Black people are still frustrated with their Black white brothers and sisters. And we don't
have time. Will you promise to come back again?
I will certainly come back. I love
because you just lit me up when you say Black people and then you fill in the blank. It is as though you speak like all Black people are monolithic, and we don't have
what I said. But
I didn't say you said that. I said it seems to me as though my inference is when you say Black people and then you fill in the blank. My inference is that there is no discrimination of difference on the gray scale between Black and brown.
Listen, there's always scales of difference, but on the whole, okay, this is a country that had laws against Black people, and they defined that as if you had an ounce of Black, you were Black. That's how the country defined it, not me.
It's a 35th. We are going to bring you back. It has to do with the scientists arguing with the agrarians in favor of freedom. And the scientists told the agrarians, how about if you agree that a man is 3/5 of a man? And the agrarians said, okay, do it. And we all know that when the census says that parents have 2.8 children, we know they're not raising a 0.8 kid. Hey, Greg, you've been a great deal of fun, and I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
I hope for you to come back. We'll plan it anytime you can. Thanks to Gina and the rest of your team. I'm going to remove you now, and thank you for being here tonight, okay?
Yes, sir. All right, take care.
You bet. Thank you. What a show, baby. I still never figured out how to share that screen. But once again, thanks to Greg Robinson for being here and putting up with the old Tommy McCay. You can catch me on Facebook at Tommy McCay and on Twitter at Tommy McCay. 3D Politics Live. There's nothing like it. Don't forget, coming up next week, I've got Paul Tay coming up. I've got, who else, by golly? All of them are coming up. Ken Reddick, we had him. Ty Walker, we had him. Craig Immel, we had him. Zachary Whitlow, we just heard from him tonight. He's coming in. Paul Tay's coming up later this month. It's all been a great time. Tommy McCay, your fantastic host for 3D Politics Live. We'll catch you next week. Everybody, thanks again, especially Clay Clark, Debbie Robinson, Greg Robinson.